everyone. Ready to have your minds blown?
I know I am.
We're diving into Thinking Fast and Slow by this Nobel Prize-winning dude, Daniel Kahneman. And let me tell you, this book, it's like peeking behind the curtain of your own brain.
Yeah, it totally changes how you see the world and
Yeah.
how you understand, all the crazy ways we make decisions.
It's seriously like an instruction manual for how we think, but
But way more fun than an instruction manual.
right. Okay, so Kahneman, he basically says that we all have these two systems of thinking going on at the same time, like constantly.
Yeah, it's like a 2-for-1 deal in your head.
Exactly. We've got system one and system two. System one, it's like your super fast, shoot from the hip kind of thinking, totally driven by emotion, instinct, all that jazz.
It's the reason you can, dodge a car that slams on its brakes in front of you without even thinking.
Yes. Or like when you see a spider and you freak out. System one.
Exactly. It's all about survival, right? Quick reactions, keeping us safe.
Totally. But here's the thing. Sometimes those quick reactions, they can lead us astray.
Oh, yeah. System 1 is great at making snap judgments, but those judgments, not always accurate.
Right. So then there's system two. This is our more deliberate, logical self, like when you actually stop and think things through.
The voice of reason.
Totally. But here's the kicker. System two, it's got kind of a lazy streak. It's like it would rather just be chilling on a beach somewhere, letting system one do all the work, even when system one's like totally off base.
Like system 1's the impulsive friend, always dragging system 2 into questionable situations.
You know that friend.
We all do.
So how does this play out in real life? Kahneman gives this example. Imagine you're trying to decide if a politician is competent just by looking at their face.
Oh, I do this all the time.
Me too.
Yeah.
And we probably shouldn't.
Right. But that's system 1, man. It can't help itself. It's drawn to quick and easy judgments.
It's like judging a book by its cover.
Exactly. Or, okay, how about this? Think about the word vomit. Just the word, think about it for a second.
Oh, God. Okay, I am. And.
Makes you want to gag a little.
Right, yes. So gross.
No deep thought required. Pure system 1 instinct.
Okay, so that's system one for you. Fast, intuitive, and sometimes a little too eager to jump to conclusions. But we've got to give it credit. It's got our back when it really matters.
Totally, like when there's a spider nearby.
Exactly. So how about system two? What's its deal? Is it always right?
Well, it tries to be. System 2 loves logic, reason, carefully weighing all the options.
So it's the responsible one. But we already established that it can be kind of lazy.
Yeah, it's a work in progress, for sure. And even when it tries to be logical, it can still get tripped up by these things called cognitive biases.
Ooh, cognitive biases. Sounds juicy. What are those?
All right, so picture your brain like it's a highway.
Yeah.
And system 2, it's driving along, trying to get to, Logicville.
Okay, I'm picturing it. Logicville, here we come.
But then there are all these exits along the way, right? These exits, the cognitive biases. And system 2, well, sometimes it's just easier to take the exit than to fight the traffic all the way to Logicville.
Makes sense. Who wants to be stuck in traffic?
Yeah.
Especially mental traffic.
Right. And these biases, they're sneaky. They can pop up when we least expect it and totally throw us off course.
So we got to be extra vigilant, keep our eyes on the road, and try to resist those tempting exits.
Exactly. Now, one of those really tempting exits, that's the one labeled cognitive ease.
Okay, cognitive ease, what's that all about? Tell me more.
So basically, our brains are hardwired to prefer things that feel easy and familiar. Like, if something's easy to process, we're more likely to believe it's true.
That makes sense. Like if I'm reading something and it's full of jargon I don't understand, I'm more likely to just be like, ugh, whatever, and move on.
Exactly. Or, let's say you meet someone for the first time and they've got this super friendly, approachable vibe. You're probably more likely to think, oh, they seem nice. They must be trustworthy and intelligent too.
Oh, for sure. And have I ever been wrong about that?
We've all been there. It's called the halo effect. And it's all thanks to our love of cognitive ease. We take one positive trait and then, boom, we just assume a whole bunch of other positive traits come along with it.
Sneaky brain.
Totally. And there's another sneaky trick our brains use called the mere exposure effect.
Okay, the mere exposure effect. This is a new one. Hit me with it.
Have you ever noticed how a song can grow on you? Like the first time you hear it, you're like, it's okay. But then you hear it again and again, and suddenly you're totally humming along.
Oh, all the time. Especially if it's on the radio a lot. I'm like, I guess I do like this song.
Exactly. And that's the mere exposure effect in action. Just by being exposed to something repeatedly, we tend to like it more, even if there's no real reason for it.
I'm starting to think our brains are just playing tricks on us half the time.
Well, maybe not tricks exactly. It's more like your brain is trying to be efficient.
Efficient by making us like bad songs.
No. It's about conserving mental energy, right?
Yeah.
If something feels familiar, our brains are like, okay, no need to sound the alarm bells. This must be safe.
Ah, I see. So our brains are all about shortcuts and energy conservation. Makes sense.
Totally. And these shortcuts, they're called heuristics.
Heuristics. Sounds fancy. Fill me in.
It's really just a fancy word for mental shortcuts. They're like these rules of thumb that help us navigate the world without, overthinking every little thing.
Okay, I like the sound of that. Who has time to overthink everything? Not me.
Right. Like, imagine you're trying to decide what to have for dinner. You could spend hours researching different recipes, analyzing nutritional value.
Or you could just order pizza.
Exactly. And that's kind of what heuristics help us do. They're like, look, I know you don't have all day, so let's just go with what feels right.
Makes sense. But can't that lead to some, not so great decisions?
Oh, absolutely. Heuristics are super useful most of the time, but they can also lead us down some pretty wacky paths.
Wacky paths. Give me an example.
Okay, get ready for this. Think about the letter K. Can you come up with as many words as possible that start with the letter K?
Okay, K. Kite. Kangaroo. Kitchen.
Okay, good. Now, words with K is the third letter.
The third letter. Ask, acknowledge. This is harder.
See? And that right there is a perfect example of how heuristics can mess with our perception, because it's easier for us to think of words that start with K. We tend to overestimate how common they actually are.
So it's like our brains are saying, well, if it's easy to recall, it must be true.
Exactly. The easier it is to bring something to mind, the more likely we think it is.
So that's the availability heuristic.
You got it.
I'm starting to see how these mental shortcuts can be both a blessing and a curse.
Totally.
Okay, so we've got System 1 and System 2, these heuristics pulling the strings, and cognitive biases lurking around every corner.
And we're just getting started.
There's more. What else do we need to know to navigate this wacky world of decision-making?
Well, buckle up, because next we're diving into the wild world of representativeness, and trust me, it's gonna blow your mind. All right, so representativeness, you ready for this?
Hit me with it.
Okay, so picture this. There's this woman, Linda, right? Super smart, outspoken, really passionate about social justice. Went to all the protests back in the day. You know the type.
Okay, got it. Passionate Linda.
Right. So here's the million-dollar question. Is Linda more likely to be a bank teller? Or a bank teller who's also a passionate advocate for social justice, like really active in those circles?
See, this is where my brain wants to say, oh, she's totally the passionate advocate type.
Yeah.
But something tells me that's not how statistics work.
You got it. And that, my friend, is your system 2 trying to muscle its way in, which is a good thing because, logically speaking,
There's got to be way more bank tellers in the world than bank tellers who are also, like, social justice warriors.
exactly. It's just that Linda's description, it just fits that image so perfectly in our minds, right?
Yeah, she's like the poster child for it. So even when the odds are statistically lower, this representativeness thing can really throw us off.
Big time. And it happens all the time. It's how we end up with stereotypes and make these quick judgments about people or situations based on, like, really superficial similarities.
Okay, wow, this is making me rethink all those times I've jumped to conclusions about someone.
We all do it. It's just how our brains are wired. But now that you're aware of it, you can catch yourself, right?
Right. Okay, so representativeness officially busted. What other brain-twisting concepts does Kahneman throw at us?
All right, get ready for this one. It's called regression to the mean.
Regression to the mean. Sounds ominous, but also, like, vaguely familiar.
Think about it this way. Ever notice how after a really amazing performance, like you totally crush it on a test, or you hit a new personal best in the gym?
Oh, yeah, and then the next time, I totally eat it. Like, faceplant on the treadmill kind of eat it.
Exactly. It's like you're on this high, and then boom, you come crashing back down to earth.
It's like the universe's way of keeping me humble.
Pretty much. And that's regression to the mean. In
Yeah.
a nutshell. Extreme highs are often followed by a more, like, average performance and vice versa.
So it's not just me, it's like a universal law of mediocrity. I don't know if I like that.
Well, think of it this way. It also means that those super low lows are usually followed by something a bit more, normal.
Well, that does make me feel a tiny bit better. But why does it happen? Is it just, like, bad luck?
It's not about luck. It's about statistics. Things tend to even out over time. But here's the thing. Our brains, they crave patterns, right? So instead of seeing this regression to the mean for what it is, we start making up these elaborate stories.
Oh, I do that all the time. Like, I aced that first test because I'm a genius, and then Ugh, bomb. The second one must have been that extra slice of pizza last night.
And really, it's just things evening out, like you said.
So I'm not a genius or cursed by pizza.
Maybe a little both, just kidding. Look, it's more about understanding that our performance naturally fluctuates, and that's okay.
Okay, that actually is kind of reassuring. So we're not always in control of the successes and failures. It's just part of this regression to the mean thing.
Exactly. And speaking of not being in control,
Uh-oh, that sounds like a perfect segue to another one of Kahneman's mind-blowing concepts.
you know it. Get ready for WISIety. What you see is all there is.
WISIOT. Okay, that one sounds intense, even for us. What does that even mean?
It's basically our brain's tendency to jump to conclusions based on, like, super limited information. Like, we see a couple pieces of a puzzle, and our brains are already trying to guess the whole picture.
Oh, I do that all the time. It's like watching a movie trailer and being convinced you know exactly what's going to happen.
And then the movie's totally different, and you're like, wait, what?
The worst. But okay, so our brains do this WISI thing, and then what? What's the harm in jumping to conclusions?
Well, it can lead to some pretty big biases. Like, we might overestimate our abilities because we're only focusing on our successes and ignoring all the times we messed up.
Oof, I've been there. It's like that saying, we judge ourselves by our intentions, but others by their actions. Except we're kind of doing it to ourselves too, aren't we?
Exactly. Or we might make decisions based on incomplete or even inaccurate information because our brains are filling in the gaps with assumptions.
So WISIOT is basically our brain's way of saying, I'm not waiting for all the facts, I'm going with what I've got.
And that can be a recipe for disaster.
Okay, I'm officially starting to feel like my brain is working against me. How do we combat this?
Well, that's where another one of System 1's sneaky tricks comes into play. It's called anchoring.
Anchoring. Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
Okay, so imagine this. You're trying to guess how old Gandhi was when he died.
Okay, I have no idea. Like 80,
Mhm.
90.
Could be. But first, someone comes up to you and asks, hey, was Gandhi older or younger than 140 years old when he died?
140. That's insane. Nobody lives to be 140.
Right. But here's the thing. Even though you know 140 is totally bogus, that number, it's going to stick in your head.
Yeah.
And I bet you're more likely to guess a higher age for Gandhi now than you would have before.
Wait, seriously? So just hearing that random number, even if it's totally ridiculous, it can still influence my thinking.
You got it. It's called anchoring, and it happens all the time. We use these arbitrary reference points to make judgments, even when those reference points make no logical sense.
That's kind of scary when you think about it. Like, what if I'm out shopping and I see, like, a $10,000 handbag?
Right. Suddenly a $500 handbag doesn't seem so outrageous.
Okay, wow, I see it. So how do we protect ourselves from these anchoring tricks?
Well, awareness is key. Just knowing that anchoring exists is a good first step. So the next time you see a crazy high price tag or hear a statistic that seems out there, stop and ask yourself, okay, is this number influencing me more than it should?
So be more skeptical, especially when numbers are involved. Got it. But even with all this awareness, it still feels like we're fighting a losing battle against our own brains, you know?
I hear you. It can feel overwhelming. But here's the thing. The more we understand about how our minds work, the better equipped we are to make smarter decisions. And one of the most important things you can do is cultivate a healthy dose of skepticism, especially when it comes to your own intuition.
So when is it safe to trust our gut? And when should we be, like, second-guessing ourselves?
Here's a good rule of thumb. When you're dealing with stuff like probability, statistics, predictions, anything where emotions can cloud your judgment, that's when you want to engage that system too, and really put your intuition on trial.
So, like, if I'm thinking about investing in a friend's new business, instead of just being like, yeah, that sounds awesome, I should really do my research and, like, look at the cold, hard numbers.
Exactly. Don't let your excitement or your desire to help your friend cloud your judgment.
Okay, I can see that. It's about finding that balance, right, between intuition and analysis.
Exactly. Now, you mentioned getting tricked by those high price tags. Well, there's another bias Kahneman talks about, the endowment effect. That's our tendency to overvalue things simply because they belong to us.
Oh, tell me about it. I've got boxes of stuff in my attic that I'm convinced are super valuable, but in reality, nobody probably wants them.
Exactly. It's like that old t-shirt you never wear, but you can't bear to get rid of because it reminds you of that awesome concert you went to.
Or that old concert tee that's so worn out it has holes in it. I've got a few of those.
You and me both. Sentimentality is a powerful force.
Okay, so how do we avoid getting blinded by sentimentality or, just our own bad taste when we're making decisions?
That's a great question. One trick is to try to detach yourself emotionally and look at the situation from an outsider's perspective. Imagine you're advising a friend. What would you tell them to do?
That's a good tip. It's like getting a fresh pair of eyes on the situation. Okay, I've got to ask about something else that really blew my mind in the book. The idea that algorithms can sometimes make better decisions than humans, I mean, that just feels wrong somehow.
It does, right. But it makes sense when you think about it. Algorithms, they're not swayed by emotions or biases like the halo effect or WISID.
Hmm.
They're just crunching data and spitting out an answer based on cold, hard facts.
So does that mean we should just like hand over all our decisions to robots and call it a day?
Not quite. While algorithms can be incredibly useful in so many ways, they're not a magic solution. They're only as good as the data they're fed, and they can't account for every nuance of human behavior.
Right, like maybe an algorithm could pick out a decent bottle of wine, but it wouldn't know if I was in the mood for like a bold red or a crisp white.
Exactly. It's about finding the right balance,
Mhm.
using algorithms to our advantage when objectivity is key, but also recognizing the importance of human judgment, experience, all of that.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I feel like I need to go back and reread Thinking Fast and Slow immediately.
You and me both.
Yeah.
It's one of those books you can revisit again and again and still learn something new. But for our listeners who are just dipping their toes into the world of behavioral economics, what's the one big takeaway you hope they walk away with today?
You know, for me, it's about being kind to yourself. We all make irrational decisions. We all fall prey to these biases. It's part of what makes us human.
That is reassuring. I feel like we've been putting our brains on trial this whole episode.
Uh-huh, a little bit. But it's all in good fun. The important thing is to learn from our mistakes and try to do better next time. Knowledge is power, right? Absolutely. The more we understand about these mental quirks, the better equipped we are to navigate the world around us.
Exactly.
Well, on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive on thinking fast and slow. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride through the incredible world of the human brain. And remember, stay curious, my friends.